Hey, Zen Zenith.
Hey, Jake Lloyd.
You know what we should do?
What?
We should start a podcast network.
Okay, yeah.
I think we should call it Dragon Wagon Radio.
That is a great idea.
And you know what we could do is we could have shows from a variety of different independent artists, people who maybe don't necessarily have the platform to put out content the way that they want to put it out.
I like it. What else?
Let's come up with a slogan.
Okay, hold on. Let me think. Okay, I've got it. Dragon Wagon Radio. Roar!
Print it. Hello and welcome to Elaborate. It is another week. It is another episode. 12 in. We're a dozen in. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. If you're enjoying the show, please go leave an iTunes review. That is so crucial in helping people find the show. I'm very excited this week to be sitting down with a man who is incredibly talented. He's an actor, an improviser, an artist, a cosplayer, a singer, a man of many talents and many handsomes. It's Jo Crandall. Hey, Joe.
Hey,
How's it going?
it's going.
It's just going? That's it?
I'm pretty tired.
Yeah, you're a little fatigued? All right, well, we're going to come right out of the gate. We're going to have some high energy. We're going to do this again because we're on now. This is it. We're
Yay.
on.
Oh, hi.
We're on now. So
Jake.
let's try this again. Ready? Here we go. Ready? And hi, Joe.
Hi, Jake.
Wouldn't it be awful if that was the sort of show that this was?
Yeah.
Like, that would be really bad.
I feel like I'm just listening to morning radio.
Do you think I should do like a
and-
pre-show prep talk with my guests? Like, all right, are you ready? We're gonna have high energy. We're gonna be really good. We're gonna talk. We're gonna learn some stuff.
Well, then what would separate you from Kelly and Regis or whatever, whoever's on there now? Michael Vick, is it?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know. A couple $1 million, maybe. That's what would separate us.
Yeah.
So you, my love, I don't know when we met. I have no idea. I have no idea what our origin story is.
Oh God. You know what? We met on the Pirates. The Paul Bianchi's. He asked me to do one.
That's right. So my bestie, my better half, and frequenter of this show and host of Myth Understood, Paul Bianchi, wrote and produced and starred in a pirate web series thing that we shot a few of. They still have yet to be released because I think it's one of those things where we want to complete before we release anything. That's right. And you came on to be a pirate.
Yeah.
And you argued quite a bit.
Arg. Yeah. And I argued enough to get SAG eligible.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
We made you SAG-y
Which
from that?
at the time I was very excited about.
Oh, wow.
And I know that people involved, I think including Paul, were like, we don't need to have the SAG,
right.
but
hey,
other people
it did
wanted
some good.
And
If it did some good, it did some good.
At the time, it did some good.
Right. And so, God, that was, how long ago was that? 4 years?
Oh,
3 years?
3.
Feels like I've known you forever.
Right. And then, again, ran into you at Comic-Con last year.
Yes. Were you in the costume?
Yes.
With your head, with the thing on your head?
Yes.
And then took it off?
Yes.
Right. So you are a cosplayer.
Yeah.
And you okay with me calling you a cosplayer versus I'm somebody who cosplays? Like, do you have any sort of...
Okay, so when I think of a cosplayer, I think of somebody who does that all the time, legit, knows exactly what they're doing, and can...
What does that mean, knows exactly what they're doing?
Can teach it, or can monetize it, and or can amass a following.
Right. So if for anybody who may be listening who might not know for some reason what cosplaying is, it's the act of essentially recreating a popular character from pop culture.
Yeah.
And going to a thing or taking pictures. It's really just dress up.
It's dress up.
I hate to belittle it, but
it's and Adam Savage puts it really, really well. Is that it's dress up, but you're also you're becoming the character,
right?
So that you can. A lot of people do it so that they can be more than themselves on some aspect.
So that's where the play of it comes.
That's where the play comes. Yeah,
of the cosplay,
and
this is really a Comic-Con sort of convention based thing. but it sort of grew from that and became more of like people that just like do it on any given Tuesday or something.
Well, a lot of it now is people do that for like
Social media?
fundraisers.
Right.
And hospital visits.
Right.
And stuff. People love superheroes now, and so a lot of people that I have come encounter with, they do that.
Interesting.
Mostly with their cosplay, and then the
See,
conventions are where they.
That's nice though, because I mean, in case you can't tell by the tone of my incredibly sarcastic voice, cosplay is a thing I've never understood. It's a
Right.
thing that like I've just never. I understand the like, oh, it's Comic-Con, it's a big thing. Let's dress up as something fun, and it'll be
Right.
fun to walk around. But the people who were like all day, every day, just like it's what they do. They're just making costumes.
Yeah.
I guess a part of it is a lot of those people that I know are also like actors or that kind of thing. And the whole thing, and I'm going to sound super douchey and condescending, so if you're a really big cosplayer, get ready because I'm going to offend your ass. The whole thing just seems sort of silly to me.
Yes.
As far as like the people who take it really seriously.
Yeah.
Like especially because all you're doing is spending all of your time trying to be another act. Because here's the thing: is it's not just about characters.
No, it's not.
It's like, oh, I want to look just like David Tennant from Doctor Who, or as somebody who struggles with identity issues and who's like is desperate to be an individual. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's my personal nightmare.
I actually had this conversation like a week ago. I was having a like not existential like meltdown or anything. Well, maybe, but I get really obsessive and detail oriented when I'm building something.
Okay.
And so I was sourcing out and trying to research the 3D printers because I really want to make really good detailed stuff on my own.
And
and
3D printers would help you build like like fake guns and belt buckles and that sort of stuff. Like
right, stuff to make it even more authentic, authentic looking than just cutting a piece of foam, which is great, which is where I got started and which is where I live now.
So the recreation is sort of part of what really drives you.
And I have been referred to as the affordable Chris Pratt. It's like if Jay Moore and Chris Pratt had a love child.
Oh my God, I totally see that.
But I was staying up late and just staring at my computer, like looking up like little minute details, like, oh, this isn't accurate. It changes in this and that and this. Looking at the costume, and my girlfriend's like, you know, I love you, and I just want to make sure that you're not doing something that is actually going to be harmful for you down the line.
Oh, because you like when you say obsessed, you would literally.
I would literally become obsessed, and so I thought about it, and it's like, what was it about? I do Star-Lord, so what was it about Star-Lord? I had never gotten from Guardians of the Galaxy. I had no idea who he was. I had no idea about cosplay. The woman I was with prior to my current girlfriend, and hopefully the last girlfriend I will ever have. She made costumes for people, and I liked building furniture, so I know how to build stuff and how to design stuff. But I saw that movie, and something about it was just like, I have to be him. I have to be this. And you're giving me look.
No.
It was just like,
it's not judgmental. Like I'm interested in my brain. I'm working out. So you didn't do this before Star-Lord?
No, I didn't.
This is what got you into the cosplay.
This is what got me into it.
And was it specifically the movie? Like you saw the movie and were like, this is the character, like I want to be this character?
And that's the thing. Like I've been trying to rack my brain. Like what is it that is so, all the magnetism that is just drawing me to this, and then to cosplay in general. Like, and what is it about becoming somebody else or becoming something else that is so interesting to me?
And when you say that, and so this is the thing that I guess is I like to think I'm a romantic. I like to think that I can romanticize things and activities and stuff like that. But this is one of those things that I guess I struggle with, in the sense when you say, "Oh, become that," outside of a context of an event.
How? Right?
No. I'm asking. I'm sorry. That was my poor example of a question. Are you saying that like you would become that just by starting the production and like building it? Is that part of it? Is the like working on the costume? Is that your mental sort of like, oh, I'm channeling this, or is it really just about putting the costume on?
That is the question, isn't it? Like, so that's the question that I was asking about. Like, what is it? Am I trying to emulate actually the actor? Am I not.
Is there?
Am I envious of this person, Chris Pratt, who was a little overweight, or he was overweight?
Yeah,
and who is funny, and he's
a guy who 10 years ago would have never been the lead in a superhero movie.
What, like, I can very much like relate to that.
Sure.
And he became something else, and now boom, he's loved and adored. He's working all the time, and he's just a genuinely great person.
Right.
So what is it that I'm
right?
That
is there anything?
It was just so visceral that I need to be that.
And so you think that it was really truly stemmed from Chris Pratt, not so much the movie.
I think
it was the combination.
I think it was a combination, but at the time I had no idea. It was just like, oh my god, I have to be that. I have to be Star-Lord.
Is there anything about the character in the movie that like you associate with your own life, or is there something that you sort of empathize with and be like, oh wait, and then that's kind of what triggered it?
I mean, on some really superficial and like, I don't, maybe millennial level of it's all about me, is I could kind of understand the lack of I mean, my dad was always around.
Okay.
But he was always preoccupied.
Right.
So
you had like the sort of absentee but present, like emotionally absentee father? No, you don't want to go that far.
I don't want to go, like, I don't.
So you say he was preoccupied. What do you mean?
He was preoccupied. Like, he was literally preoccupied. Like, so he was a math teacher. And right when the internet was coming out, I was,
right when
he was a middle school math teacher.
When Al Gore created the internet.
Right. When Al Gore created the internet, he's always been fascinated by new technology and everything.
Okay.
So, but I'd get stuck in my math work and I wouldn't know what to do.
Sure.
And I mean, this is a man who like could have worked at JPL,
right,
because of his math skills, like inventing his own ways to do math and stuff.
Sure.
And I'd be like, Dad, can you show me how to do this?
Right.
I just, and then nothing.
Really?
You just staring at the computer, and I'd walk away, and then 10 minutes later, what do you need? I'd come back and ask him a question. Be like, did you read the book? Well, yeah, I don't understand it.
Yeah.
Because now I realize I'm the kind of person, like, I need to see how it's done.
Right.
I need hands-on, and then I know it, and then I know it forever.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I learned by doing. If you hand me an instruction manual to something, it might as well be in a different language.
Yeah.
But let me touch it and figure it out, and then I can. But
that's why I think IKEA works really well. For me.
Right. Are you an only child?
No, my brother's 6 years older.
Oh, okay. So my brother's 7 years older, so I get that. It's just like you can't even relate because it's just a completely different experience.
Completely.
Because who knows how different your father was at different points in your ages.
Oh, and they have an amazing relationship. Right. Like,
do you still have a good relationship with him?
With my dad?
Yes.
Yeah. It's a lot better.
Right.
I went through some therapy and I came clean with him. I'm like, Dad, look, I've been really upset with you for a long time, and I just want to know, even if you feel like you didn't do anything wrong, I forgive you. And
that's so important, and it's also so hard because you never know how somebody of his generation.
Yeah, it was just a lot of it too was teams. Like, he would team up with my brother.
Gotcha.
I would team up with my mom.
Yeah,
and it would just be that kind on dynamic.
I get that. Yeah, like who's on my side today?
Right.
Yeah. So, is there? You have to remind me. Is there something in this? Remind me of the Star-Lord story.
Right.
Like wasn't he like left, or he was taken from Earth? Remind me of the story.
He didn't know his dad.
Right.
He was taken from Earth. Spoiler alert! After his mom passed away.
Right.
It happened in the first minute.
Right.
And then he spending most of his life stealing and doing anything he could just to get by.
Just to survive, yeah.
And I think I can relate to that. Not the stealing.
right, sure.
Well, to a degree. Not like physically stealing stuff, like, but
just live in the hustle.
But trying to live the hustle, or trying to figure out what your hustle is.
Right.
And not really having a good sense of direction for that. and he's just witty as fuck.
Right. Sure. You enjoy him as a person.
I enjoy
right.
Well, the character too.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
And man, he got so much alien pussy.
Is that what it's all about right there?
Yeah.
So we cracked the code. It's like, there might be some daddy issues, but in actuality, we want to get some alien.
Yeah,
some alien
strange.
So were you even like a big sci-fi, like into comics and into kind of like nerd culture before that movie? Or was that movie really the catalyst for you? That character?
I had just gotten into the Battlestar Galactica.
Oh, kind of.
My dad's a Trekkie, so like
interesting.
The time we did.
Did you share that as a kid?
I didn't share the love for it, but I enjoyed the time.
Right.
Because that was some time that we had.
It's interesting how you sort of try to find joy from like out of necessity for somebody. Yeah. I equate that to like my brother. So my father was gone before I was born.
Oh
wow. And so like I definitely had plenty of male role models. Mm-hmm. But like my brother was the most immediate because he was there and he's 7 years older than me. So he's old and he's a good distance enough where like
he's wise.
He's a little wise. Yeah. But and it was the same way where we couldn't be more different. I always tell people if you put 100 guys in a room.
Yeah,
me, my brother, and then like 98 people who weren't white, you still wouldn't pick us two.
Oh wow!
Or you still wouldn't pick him as my brother. You know what I mean? Like we couldn't be more different.
Yeah.
And so I remember as a kid, like sort of forcing myself to like some of the things that he liked, just because it was a way for us to spend time together. Yeah. Like no matter what it was, whether it was like a music or a band. And honestly, as I'm saying this out loud, I'm realizing I still kind of do it.
Yeah,
I still kind of do. Like if I'm visiting him and he's like, "Oh, I check out this thing that I'm watching," and it's something I really have no interest in.
Yeah,
I'll still be like, "Oh yeah," and I'll still like kind of like maybe feign interest in it because I desperately long for us to make some semblance of connection still to this day.
My dad was huge into space and technologies, and I was too.
Right.
Like that was one thing I actually did have like a real love for. I was like, and everyone wanted to be an astronaut as a kid, but I was really like, send me to space camp. I never went.
Right.
So, and as I grow older, I feel like, we have a lot more in common than we thought.
Right.
And I went to college. I got my degree in acting and stuff. And at the time, my dad's like, "Don't you want to take some like computer science classes?"
Right.
No, I don't. And now looking back, I actually called him the other day. I'm like, "I hate you." He's like, "What? Why?" I'm like, "I should have taken some classes."
I hate you not being stern enough.
Yeah. I'm like, "Is there any other knowledge that you'd like to?"
Sounds like a complex relationship.
Yeah.
So you got into cosplaying Star-Lord.
Yeah.
Has that stemmed into other?
Yeah. My current girlfriend is really big into Harry Potter. So now I cosplay as Ron. From Harry Potter and in Quidditch robes and everything that I made I sewed by hand and made like foam pads and everything. And that's actually a lot like, and I made that from like the ground up. There were no parts or pieces that I bought. So like everything is incredibly screen accurate. Whereas you look at my Star-Lord stuff and it's like, oh, well, that's a Nerf gun from Target that was painted and redone.
Do you find that, so you're an actor, you're obviously into film. Do you find that cosplaying specifically film and film costuming itself is more of what draws you than like doing a comic book character from a comic book? Yeah. You want to be able to see another real life interpretation and recreate it.
Right. I need that detail. And like you can, I think that's just how my mind works. I have to have detail. If it's just like a wash of color, I can't do it.
Right.
Like right now I'm building a set for somebody's Hollywood Fringe show. And it's like, it's supposed to have a comic book feel to it. So like the brick, and I'm like, well, then it's just going to be a wash of red with some black lines.
Right.
I'm not that kind of person. It needs to be like incredibly high definition, realistic.
High detail. So there's two little tangents that I want to go on here.
Let's go.
You said you sewed these robes from the ground up. You mentioned earlier that you build furniture.
Yeah.
So that's where you got that. Where does all that come from? Or where does like your kind of craftiness come from? And can you impart it on me?
Well, as a kid, I would. My dad got me one of those because he's big into technology. Those 60-in-1 things. Used to get them at Radio Shack, and it came with a bunch of wires and a bunch of springs and capacitors and stuff. And you can make different things like a doorbell, or you can make like a a little button that beeps every time you press it. Like
right. So it's just this little like electrical engineering kind of kit.
Yeah. And so from that, I was even as a kid, I had no direction. So like I'd want to do that for the rest of my life one day, and then the next day I'm like, I'm gonna be a comedian, and then the next day I'm gonna be a rapper.
Right. You and me both.
Yeah. And so I would build like dioramas, and then that went to high school where we'd have to participate in the science fair. That was something that you had to do.
Right.
And I was more about like the building of the actual project and the aesthetic and
the science
than
of
the
it.
actual science of it.
I was the exact same way. I was big into spectacle.
Yeah.
I was like, this has got to be really cool looking.
Yeah.
I want something crazy to happen, and there's literally no science involved. I
was just like, does it better to build or to grow tomato plants with hydroponics or regular planting? I'm like, but how are we going to show this?
Right.
Like
right,
I want it to look pretty.
Right. Yeah. So when like. Did that I mean, because furniture building is a completely different beast from like electrical engineering kind of stuff. Like, where did the wood come in? Was that just with that sort of like?
So that came from college. All of my answers are going to be long-winded.
No, please. In college, I don't know anything about you. This is amazing to me.
So in high school, my parents, they didn't want me to act. They wanted me to They wanted me to keep my grades up. So I would then build the sets instead, because that was a much shorter commitment.
Right.
And so that's where a lot of that woodworking came from. And then my senior year, I just didn't tell my parents that I was auditioning. And
for like high school plays?
Yeah, for high school plays. So when I would come home and be like, hey, so you know how I have like all good grades? Like, yeah. I'm like, okay, come see my show tomorrow.
Like, so you like straight up was doing rehearsals and stuff like that.
Rehearsal and because I was part of choir. I was, so they knew I was doing something after school. They were good friends with the choir teacher, so they just were like, oh yeah, he's fine. Like, just stick around. So then I took that. I went to college. I wanted to be in musical theater, but I couldn't dance. So I became an opera major. And then
wait, you became an opera major?
I was an opera major for a very limited amount of time. Like, I know what my range was at the time. I don't know any other languages. Right. I know very little piano.
Gotcha.
And I was like, I need much more attention than this. Right. So where'd
you go to college?
University of Central Florida in Orlando.
Oh.
Sponsored by the Mouse.
I didn't know that you were a Florida.
Yes.
Floridite. Where did you grow up?
I was born in Libertyville, Illinois, and then. And my family's still up in like Rockford and Chicago and Peoria.
Gotcha.
But I moved down to Inverness, Florida, when I was like a young lad, a very young lad.
Oh,
don't remember.
Oh, okay.
So I spent most of my time in a town of 3,000 people.
Right. So, God, so many things now. I'm curious
all
about
the tangents.
No. That's good, because here's the thing: is I'm feeling this is such a theme with so many of the people that I sit down and do this with, is that sort of like lack of direction.
Yeah.
Where it's like, and I don't know that it's bad. I don't know that it's good. Like, so for me, it's the same way, where it's like, at one point in my childhood, I was only gonna be a video game designer. Yeah. That was it. And then I was only gonna be a comic book artist. And then I was just gonna be a musician. That was it. I was gonna be a jazz musician. And then I wanted to be an actor. And like the difference with me is that I feel like no matter what my taste of the day was, gotta give credit to my mom, she always pushed at least. Now, she didn't know how to help in any of those regards, so it's not like she's like, oh, well, if you're interested in this, you should look at this.
Or there wasn't like, okay, then Google that.
Yeah, and it was that thing of like, well, Mom, I really think I want to act more than anything. It wasn't like a great, like, here, go to this acting school or go to this, or instead it was like, okay, I support you. I don't know how you do that, but sure. Okay. It was more of an emotional support than an actual directive support.
And I find that is much more important sometimes.
Sure.
Well, for me.
Right. So, but I wanted to ask you, like, when and why were your parents, I mean, you say that obviously your parents like, well, I want to make sure you're doing something after high school, but like, it seems to me like you're the first person I've ever spoken to who's like, oh yeah, in high school, my parents didn't want me to act. Right. It's different when you're like, oh, I want to go to act in college, and like, oh, no. Right. But like, they didn't even want you to do like high school plays.
No. The only plays I was allowed to do were church plays. I think because it was such the commitment was so much smaller. Usually you have like 2 weeks
because it's the weekends and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
You grew up super religious?
So my grandfather was a pastor.
Right, you mentioned.
But not one of those like God said let there be light and click. There was light. It was like he was very much along the lines of the Bible is a really good place to start.
Oh, I like this guy. What's his what denomination was it?
Methodist.
Okay.
Yeah. And it didn't always click with people,
right.
But at the same, like, he just he wanted to make it accessible to everybody. And the Methodist Church, at least from my understanding and my experiences, there are open doors, open minds, open hearts. That's the tagline. That's the byline for the church.
Sure.
And so it's like, oh, you're gay. All right, come in. We have a seat. Like,
I never know that about Methodists. That's interesting.
So that kind of thinking that they had, which was like, this is guidelines, like Leviticus and Deuteronomy were written a long time ago.
Right. But but regardless of the progressive nature of it, the faith was still super important. And was that part of the reason why they're like, oh, you can do it in church because at least
no, I think it was all about like, we know where you are.
Oh, gotcha.
And you're not going to be like it. Like, we know that time
it was more in the environment kind of thing.
I think it was much more about like time commitment and also they were in the plays.
Oh! You didn't tell me that. That's a massive detail.
Yeah, sorry.
It was a family. Yeah, it was a family venture.
Right, but even in college, they okay. We understand if you want to be an artist or do something like that. Your brother was a journalist.
Oh shit.
He still is, but like your brother's a journalism major. Why don't you do something like teaching?
Okay.
Art.
So they were going to let you be an artist, but they wanted you to be be about it.
Right.
They didn't want you to do the starving artist thing.
Right. And so I just did not.
Then you get the last laugh.
Yeah. Joke's on you. Yeah. I did exactly.
Joke's on you. Can I borrow some money?
Yeah. Oh my God. Mommy money is the best, but I hate it.
So at some point or another, like you're like, guess what? I'm doing it. Sorry. And so how were they?
They got their story really changed when and this is gonna sound like I'm tooting my own horn.
Go ahead, toot away.
When I auditioned for the acting program, I was in college.
Okay.
At this point, I had already switched from opera to stage design, set design, and technology. And I was like, I just, there's something else calling me. I can't do this for the rest of my life. I have to like go out and try. And I had already been in one play at college. It was a bit part. I had one line, but it was enough to make me go, yes.
I like that.
So
that was a fun thing I did. Yeah.
Yeah. And the director of the play was one of the auditors in the program. They had like a couple hundred, maybe even 1,000 people audition for this program. And you audition, and then a couple weeks later or a month later or so, you get a letter saying when the callback is, if you get a callback.
Right.
And they only let in, it was a conservatory. They only let in like 8 to 12 people into the program each year. So I went to the audition and I gave it my damnedest, and then they have a little interview there and they're like, so why do you want to do this? And I was just like, I really want to tell stories, and I want the best way for me to learn something is to go through it.
Right.
We were just talking about that with our
totally hands on. Yeah, it's the same way.
And so that, I think that answer really helped, but I was still doing the play. I was still doing the play with the director guy who was auditing, and at intermission on one of the nights, I get a voicemail that says, "Hey Joe, thanks for coming to the audition. Just wanted to call you personally, let you know, don't bother coming to the callback." And I was like, fuck. And I had to do the rest of the show just like,
just super depressed.
Dream. And then I got back, and the voice, like, there was another voicemail that goes, I meant to mention, don't come to the callback because you're in.
What a dick. Yeah. What sort of like reality TV show right after the break move was that?
Right. Oh, cliffhanger. And so I told my parents, that to my parents, and they were just like, Okay.
Oh.
Okay.
And do you think it was because it's like an achievement that they were like, oh, this is a thing that he's actually really good at? Like, was there a little bit of that sort of like,
I think it was because they saw the quality of productions that they had put out.
Right.
The people that were working there at the time, they could still be working there. The quality of their own work was really, really good. Right. The places that they put up their own shows and everything. So they knew that I wasn't just throwing money at people, because that had happened before. I had taken like an acting class with my own money.
Right.
And it just...
And so like maybe just also the achievement of it sort of opened their eyes to being like, oh, wow. Like, because at some point they're probably proud of you, and then they have to realize that they're proud of you for a thing they weren't really pushing in the first place.
And then I still got the occasional like, so you have to take ballet, huh? Oh. It's like, yeah, I got to take ballet. Is there anything else you want to tell us, Joe? And it's like, no.
And you were like, well, it doesn't matter because we're Methodist, so I'm still,
I'm like, I know that most of my girlfriends are like Andy, Sam, Nick, but like...
And they're all from out of town, and they're too busy.
They go to a different
meet.
school.
Yeah. So it sounds. I mean, like you mentioned earlier when we were, talking about the kind of love for Star-Lord. Like, all right, well, Dad wasn't necessarily super maybe available.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like later in life that there was a lack of hands-on parenting, at least.
Very much available to take phone calls, to help you out of a situation. Like really for anything. It's. For me, it was a lot of the emotional, like growing up emotional stuff. Like my brother and I did not get along.
No, do you get along now?
We get along really well now. Okay. I think we both come to the understanding of like, hey, like we had that coming to Jesus moment of fuck you. All right, cool.
Yeah, cool.
You're your own guy. You're your own guy, and we're a lot better now.
Why didn't you get along when you were kids?
Just the
age
difference.
When you were a kid and he wasn't a kid.
The age difference,
really?
Man. He and. I think because he was the only child for so long, he got both of them.
Right.
And he got the best of both of their personalities. He's so quick. He's so just open. And with me, I was always trying too hard to like get them both to look at me. I was trying
that's
so
also
hard
like the younger brother syndrome too.
Yeah, and I was trying hard to play with the big kids. Like they could joke around, and like I try to make a joke about something I have no idea about, and they're just like, shut up.
Right.
And so I'd throw like a cast iron, like little Sesame Street truck at them.
Were you a destructive kind of kid? Like, were you, because to act out?
I had a parent teacher conference my 5th day of kindergarten.
Wow.
I was a bad kid.
You were 5 days in.
Yeah.
You were a troublemaker.
I was, which you would, if you know me now. You'd
no,
be like,
yeah.
What, really?
I mean, it doesn't seem like you were not a smart kid.
I was very bored.
Right. Okay. So maybe you were too smart. You were underchallenged.
And that's what they thought, and I hate they thought I was handicapped.
Okay.
Because I got bored really, really easily, and I was like basically deaf. It's just something that when you're at the time born with like fluid in your ears.
Interesting.
And they didn't know that. So like everything.
How long?
I was 5 when they found out.
Holy shit, that's a long time.
So like they'd be calling my name, and I'd just be staring at the television, and then they'd come in like, why aren't you answering me? And I just start crying, and they're just like, oh, something's wrong with our child. And so they had tests done, and they're like, he's actually really, really smart.
That's got to be really emotionally tolling for a child.
Yeah. And so like speech impediments, like I had tubes put in my ears. I went through speech training, and then finally it was like, okay, like you're up to par now. And
I'm trying to do the mental math here. So in kindergarten, you're 5 in kindergarten, right?
Yeah.
Or 6 okay.
5.
So you went through pretty much 1 year of school like this, or roughly 1 year of school without knowing, being undiagnosed with whatever this.
Yeah.
Was there a name for what you had?
I don't know.
You don't know? Oh.
No, I don't remember.
With ear fluid?
Yeah, just
ear juice.
Too much water on the brain.
Right. Interesting. And so how did they solve that?
They put these little tubes in your ears.
Okay.
You go into anesthesia, they put little tubes, and slowly over time it gets drained. But because of that, I couldn't learn how to swim till I was like 7 or 8, and then I broke my arm. I didn't actually learn how to swim till I was like 10 or 11.
I didn't learn to swim till I was like a teenager, so don't feel bad about that.
Okay, good.
I was petrified of the water as a child.
Oh, I love the water. That's what I hated so much.
I was like the I had younger cousins, and I was the big cousin who was always embarrassed because I still had like swimmies on.
The water wings.
Yeah, water wings. I hated it. So you acted out as a child because you were getting the attention that you kind of wanted or needed.
I didn't want to take naps. I would push people. I would just get up in the middle of the class. She's trying to teach us shapes and stuff, and I'm just like, fuck this.
Did that manifest in your personality as a child, or like what I'm asking is, did teachers still generally like you? Were you a good kid in the sense of like, oh, he does things because there's an issue here, but he's still smart enough and has the wherewithal?
Once we found out what the issue was, it was like, oh,
right. It was kind of a thing.
But before that, it was just like, this fucking kid.
Right.
And then I'll go back home and see them at like Applebee's now, and they're like, oh my God, hey, how you doing?
So how long were you a bad kid? Like what grade? Like how long were you act out Joe?
It took a while for the habits to go down, to go away. But I think until I was like 8 or 9.
Okay.
I also didn't know how to deal with conflict. I still don't.
Right.
But like if somebody like threw a rock at me, I remember this girl, Ashley, threw a rock at me at the playground, and I just stood up, started crying, and just kicking sand at her, and I'm the one that got in trouble.
Of course, yeah.
Because the one that makes the scene, and I just didn't understand. So even now when there's a conflict, I just shut down, because that way I know I won't get into trouble. I just poof.
Oh wow, that's got to come from, like you said, the lack of talking as a child. I'm assuming, right? And the lack of ability, not just talking, your lack of ability to communicate, because literally you couldn't communicate.
I could communicate, but it just, no one would understand me.
It was harder. Yeah.
And it was hard. Yeah, it was. I could communicate. It was just very difficult.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And so
I remember it being very difficult. It could have been a breeze for everybody else, but like,
right. Yeah. You always make everything worse in your head.
Yeah, exactly.
Than it was.
There's a lot of where my issues come from. Like,
is all of that sort of like, oh, you're living in a different reality that other people are living in.
Yeah. I have so many like undiagnosed issues about like living in my own reality. Like I have body dysmorphia, I'm pretty sure. Well, like,
oh man, that's gonna be the quote I use for you. I have body dysmorphia. I'm pretty sure. Just
because like I'll think that I look a certain way.
Yeah.
And then I'll see myself in the mirror and be like, I'll actually have moments like, who the fuck is that?
And I'm not to belittle that at all.
I'm sure everyone has that.
But yeah,
like, especially after a haircut.
That kind of sounds like the. I feel like that sort of sounds like the human condition a little bit.
But then I'll think like, oh, I'm much bigger than I am. Like
right.
I'm way overweight, and then I'll look in the mirror and be like, oh, you're not that bad.
See, I have the opposite. I'm like, no, I'm a skinny guy. I'm yeah, and then I look in the mirror and I go, oh my God, fucking, I'm awful.
What?
So like you look in the mirror and you get positive reinforcement. I look in the mirror and I get negative reinforcement.
Oh no, it fluctuates, man.
Oh,
like
gotcha.
it depends on the time of day, like the lighting, like
whether I've set up my Instagram ring light or not.
Right. The beauty
funny.
Filter, that bullshit.
So shit. I mean, like, what did you do? I know we're hopping around here, but it fascinates me. What did you do out of college? Like, so you studied opera for a little bit. You got into set design. I'm assuming that's why nowadays you still work a lot. You do a lot of art department.
Yeah.
You've worked with me and with Paul. Like when you got out of college, was it straight like, oh, I'm gonna move to LA, be an actor, do that whole thing?
Absolutely not.
No.
Straight out of college. Well, I stayed in Orlando for a year or so because I'm like, I want to move to LA. Never visited. I should have visited first.
Oh, I didn't.
But I was just like, I'm gonna move out to LA, so I need to get some money together. And I stuck around and I did a couple shows at some union places or some union and non-union, but like at the
plays. You mean like
some plays? Shows? But I was working at a movie theater and I was working at a newspaper as a distribution manager. Like,
oh, where did that come about? Just necessary for a job?
Yeah, I had a buddy that used to be the distribution manager, and he's like, hey, you need some money? I'm like, yeah, I just got into a huge car accident. I need some money.
Shit.
And so I just drive around in a golf cart delivering newspapers. And but I worked my way up and then got some money, and within about a year and a half I moved out here and started doing PA work.
Right. Right. How long have you been out in LA for now?
7 years. It feels like 3, and it also feels like 18.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like I think that I've been out here for now going on 9 years, and I just feel like how is that even possible?
I feel like time wise, I'm still a newbie.
Yeah,
but in jaded wise, I'm wise.
Yeah, jaded wise, I'm over. Yeah,
I'm there.
Interesting.
Like it's made me a cranky old man. I hate kids.
You're a curmudgeon. Oh, you hate children?
Well, not okay. That's
good. That's great. It's great that you dress up like Star-Lord and go to events. Then that you hate children.
No, just so.
Yeah, no, teenagers are awful.
On the way here, I was thinking about my issues. I'm just like I'm like. I really like to compare myself by putting 2 people together, like the love child of so-and-so.
Sure.
And it's like if Louis C.K. and what is it, Todd Barry had a child.
Okay. I guess what I always go, because mine are so contrasting, I always say that like I live in between Dick Van Dyke and Larry David. Like the super jovial, like, hey guys, energetic. Everything's great, yeah. And then the other side of me is just like, what the fuck is happening right now? Yeah. That's sort of, I think that's where I live if I had to choose. But shit,
man.
It really does fascinate me just how many people I've spoken to have very similar stories of that lack of direction.
Yeah,
and I mean, it's interesting though, growing up in essentially Florida, like. That you didn't end up with a job at Universal Studios or at Disney. Because I feel like that's the thing. Like, growing up on Long Island, I want to be an actor. Okay, great. How do you do that? I don't know. I have no idea. Like, I don't know. Do you go to the city and try to be a Broadway guy? Like, I didn't want to do plays. I wasn't interested. I mean, I did them, and I did a lot of theater. Even when I moved to Florida myself for a little while, I did community theater and that kind of shit.
Yeah.
For me, the end game was always movies. So New York City didn't seem like movies to me.
Right.
As a adolescent. So for me, it was more just like, well, I don't know how to do this. Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to work at Guitar Center or
that's
or whatever,
a good place to work.
Or whatever, whatever it is I was doing. And I took such a weird linear path of all of these different kind of sub careers and shit like that. All because I just didn't know how to do it.
Right.
And then I had a catalyst for me. And that was, I went and I did a PA and extra work on Zach and Miri Make a Porno up in Pittsburgh. It was the first like real actual budgeted film set that I was on. And I had done a ton of like student films and stuff like that in Florida. But being on that set for me was the catalyst of like, this is where I'm supposed to be doing. Like I was never in any of those other jobs. I was always sort of like, yeah, I'll do this for now. And in my back of my head, I was like, oh, well, I'm always trying to do this thing.
Right.
And then being on that set and like, and seeing all the gears turn, I was like, oh no, this is me. This is who I am. Did you have a sort of catalyst?
Yeah.
Because you do so many different things.
Yeah.
That at the end of the day, if you're like, oh, I want to be, an actor and I want to be an improviser, whatever your thing is. I guess it's a 2-part question. I guess 1, what is your thing? And 2, was there a catalyst?
Man, so you're bringing up so much stuff in me right now.
Go for it.
Which I guess is good for your
Hit
podcast. So I did a feature in Florida,
You did a feature?
Ultra low budget. Yeah.
Okay.
And I was like, I want to do this every day. And within 6 months, I moved to LA. It just solidified
so
like,
that was,
yes.
Yeah. You picture in your head what the job is.
Yeah.
And you think you're going to love it.
Yeah.
But until you see it in action and you're really doing it in a legitimate way, even if it's low budget, you're just doing it in a way you're garnishing a result and you're getting to experience the feeling. Like you don't know if it's your thing.
Right.
It's like so many people who are like, oh, I studied to be, a freaking lawyer or a carpenter or whatever the thing that they studied to do. And then the second they started doing it, like, oh, this isn't what I wanted to do anymore. Yeah.
I had a friend that went all the way through med school and got his residency and just went, nah, I want to be in a band. And now he lives in Brooklyn now, and he's like, and his band does fairly well from what I understand.
Awesome.
But for me,
so
it's like
you did that feature.
Yeah, I came out here, and then I wandered for a bit, like doing retail and stuff, just trying to keep my head above water. And I got another feature in Florida, so I flew out there and did a month and a half of just night shoots.
Oh,
it was a good adventure for experience, but it destroyed my wallet.
Right.
Because you
weren't getting any money for that.
And so I then had to pick up another job. I picked up a gig just at a design firm building stuff.
Okay, so
bars.
So that was where you kept sort of the hands-on stuff going. So you were flexing that muscle.
Yeah, and it was advertised as a part-time job, and I knew within the first week when I worked 60 hours, I'm like, this is not part-time.
Right.
And that became a job that I did for 2.5 years. Like,
but that was out here though.
That was out here, and just driving around the country building shit. So that was like 2 years. I didn't do a lick of acting.
Right.
And I was like, I got to get out of this.
Yeah, especially if you have a steady job, you're probably making okay money.
Yeah, I paid off all my credit cards.
Right.
I paid off all my loans.
That's a hard thing.
It was tempting.
Yeah.
But it was destroying me.
So many people get stuck in that, where they get stuck in that sort of like, well, I want to do this other thing, but I like being have money in the travel and having money.
But for me, it's not just about like I can't say no to money. It's I can't have people hate me.
Oh,
I can't have people be mad at me.
Does that's got to come from the kid thing?
Yeah, and honestly, it's probably, and I hope they're not listening to this. It's pretty much the only reason I'm still where I am working.
Oh, really?
Sometimes they don't see past what they only see you as.
Right.
And it really upsets me. Not upsets me, but it just kind of, because I put myself in this box, because I'm going to toot my horn again. I'm good at prop building, and I am really good at Shakespeare, performing Shakespeare, and I'm really good at theater. Like I Broadway auditions I've had, but I don't want to do that.
Right,
I want to do television and film, and I want to act. But when you're good at something, that's all people see you as being. And so I take issue with the fact that I had no idea that you were a comedian.
Oh,
like I know you as Jake Lloyd with the pirates and Jake Lloyd with the camera.
Right.
And
and that happens a lot. That happens a lot where Paul, our very good mutual friend Paul, has spoken about that with me on the show as well, where we talk about working adjacent
to
the job that you want to work.
Yes.
And the problem with that is that when you're good at something that there's more of a demand for,
right,
then you've essentially screwed yourself.
Right.
And that's what you've done. Is there aren't a lot of really good prop builders who are working at your level, who are committed. And also, here's the other thing that goes along with it. And we talk about being bitter and people not liking us. The truth is that people want, like, the reason that you're getting hired a lot is not just because you're good prop builder, it's because you're good to work with.
Right.
And people do want to work with
you.
That's
you're
70% reliable,
of the job.
You're reliable, you're professional. And that's the worst thing that you could have done for your acting career.
Yeah. And so this guy going to be a piece of shit after 14 hours?
That happens to me, where people are always like, "Oh, Jake Lloyd, he's a filmmaker, he's a director," and I don't mind that. Like, that's great,
because that is a thing you do.
Because that is a thing I do. But the problem is that there are a lot less of me than there are of actors. Just like with you, like there's a million other people that they could get they get. But
especially white male millennials,
right?
Fuck, I'm never gonna work in this town again.
If they get you to do that role, then guess what? Then they're screwed because they can't find another prop builder, or somebody to work art department who's an art director or whatever, set builder,
right?
And so I get that. That's frustrating. That's really frustrating. And I totally know the plight.
But I'm so happy that I'm doing that rather than delivering newspapers,
of course,
or working at a design firm where I'm not even close to set,
right.
But it's, oh man, it's so frustrating.
Yeah, well, I mean, industry aside,
I
know we went on this big industry tangent. It's really hard.
Well, a lot of my issues come from like I don't feel validated. Like I and at the same time, like I know I'm so fucking good at what I do, bro. I am so good, and at the same time, I have amazing imposter syndrome.
Right.
Like,
oh yeah,
I build stuff for friends, and I'm like, I'm so sorry. This did not turn out the way I wanted it.
And they're like, it's amazing.
And they're like, oh my God, how did you? I'm like,
yeah,
I don't understand you.
I feel like there's definitely a bit, what the fuck are you guys complaining about?
Yeah.
and I hate to I hate to end on that sour note there, but I totally understand that. But in actuality, I mean, like there's a lot of what we are that really does come from that childhood. That directionless, that, absentee parent kind of thing, or the younger child thing, which I think is I think that's the nail on the head for people like you and me. Is that even though I had younger cousins and shit like that, I was still just absolutely desperate to be seen and heard. And although I didn't act out in school, I definitely I needed to be the center of attention at all times. And I feel like that's what leads to people like us doing all of those different things.
Yeah.
You know, and it's the other thing too, Joe, is like, I'll silver lining this shit for you. As much as you're like, well, you know, sometimes I wish I wasn't getting these art gigs or whatever.
Yeah.
It's those gigs are probably are allowing you to pursue the other stuff without needing to be in a 9-to-5 in an office someplace. Yeah.
Going back to the directionless thing, I think and this is another thing I'm going to blame all of our parents on because that we were really the first generation was like, you can be anything you want to be.
Right.
You can do anything you want.
Right.
It wasn't like
become a plumber.
Yeah.
Dad's a plumber. Be a plumber.
Here's something, here's like some actual tangible thing that you can do. Right. And then in your free time, like see if this works out.
Right.
I
never thought about that. We were really like, we're the chase your dreams generation.
Yeah. Instead of being like, you can be anything you want to be, you can try anything you want to try.
Absolutely.
Absolutely do try. Because you know what? You are not going to be the best at everything. And that's another thing we were always told, oh, you're the greatest. Like this was phenomenal. This is great. No, that was total shit. And it's good to know what your limitations are. So.
Well, that's a somber note, but
no, it's a good note. Like just try everything.
Sure. Yeah. All right. So this was one of those first conversations.
Yeah.
I'm finding that this is happening with a lot of episodes. A couple listeners have been like, "Hey, man, some of these are really non-linear."
This is one of those,
and they're turning into like life story episodes, which I don't have a problem with. But now that I know you, now that we've been on our first date,
yes,
I want to talk to you more about growing up Methodist.
Okay.
And I want to talk to you about whether or not that faith has survived. I want to talk to you about that. I want to talk to you about the body issues and about finding Chris Pratt and how you saw something in him that kind of made you feel better about yourself or made you see yourself. I have something very similar as a very, very young child with Billy Crystal, where when I was very young, seeing City Slickers for me really set me on a path.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about a lot of those things. So you're definitely going to have to come back because for a show called Elaborate, there were many things that we did not elaborate on.
I think there were a lot of things that we tried to elaborate on and it just brought up more shit.
Yeah. But that's good. That's a happy thing. So now that we've had our first date, you got to come back as soon as possible, and we're going to have some more of these conversations because there's plenty of stuff that I think you and I have in common that I don't think we realized we had in common before right now.
So second date's going to be like dinner, podcast, and mini golf?
Yeah, maybe some hand stuff. We didn't even touch upon the fact that you're also a sketch comic, that you do improv, all these great things. So with that said, how do people find you on the internet?
You can find my acting page at jocrandall.net. That's J-O.
No E.
No E. J-O
and
Crandall.
2 L's.
2 L's. So JOCRANDALL.NET.
And no Twitter, no Instagram, none of that fun stuff?
Twitter and Instagram at Jo Crandall.
Great. Awesome.
Yeah, no one else had that name. I got very lucky.
You did get lucky. I did not get lucky, hence why the people have to follow me at Liquid Jake on Twitter. Please follow at It's Dragon Wagon on all social media. And we're still desperate for iTunes reviews. That's the biggest thing that you can do for us right now.
Yes.
If you enjoy listening to these conversations, leave a review right now. It takes 13 seconds. You don't even have to be honest. Until we get a certain amount of reviews and ratings, we will not be given a show rating overall.
Gotcha.
So please leave those. They're so super important. I will be your best friend.
Mom, email me. I'll tell you how to do it.
Also, sorry about all that stuff I said about Dad.
Yes. Don't tell him, please.
As always, thank you so much for listening. We hope you have a great week. Be fantastic to each other. I love you, Joe.
Love you too, Jake.
Elaborate is brought to you by Gamebox Monthly. Who doesn't love tabletop and board games, right? But there are just so many awesome games out there. How can anybody possibly find the very best ones to bring to the table? That's where Gamebox Monthly comes in. You see, let Gamebox Monthly help you out. They scour the land to find the very best games, from the biggest titles to undiscovered gems, and they bring them direct to your door every single month. The games are new and yours to keep, and with something new always in hand, you are sure to be the hero of your next game night. Gamebox Monthly is the only service that guarantees you'll never get a game you already have, and they cater your subscription to your preferences, what you want. So whether you're just getting into the hobby or you've been adding to your collection for years, Gamebox will send you something they know you'll love. Yes, you, specifically you. What are you waiting for? Subscribe. www.gameboxmonthly.com. Use promo code ELABORATE10 for 10% off your subscription.
Dragon Wagon.